Where do we lose sales? Most people think that we lose the sale at the end. We don't. We lose the sale at the beginning. I'll show you. Go back to the diagram that I did before. Here's what we want. We want people to use our product. That's easy. I want you to picture this for a second. I want you to picture for a second that I call you up and I say to you, Mr. Prospect, I'd like to come see you next Tuesday. And you say to me, no, I'm not interested. Is it different than if at the end of my presentation, at the end of our discussion, at the end of our meetings, you say, I'm not interested? Are they two different meanings, or are they the same meaning? One over here, the first one, which is when I call somebody up, is simply a knee-jerk reaction to what's being said. I'm not interested. Of course they're not interested. Why they're not interested is because they're happy doing what they're doing and they don't know anything else right now. But over here, the objection that comes out over here is more of an educated objection. They're more aware of what's happening because you've explained it to them. So salespeople who think they've lost sales when they've come in with the proposal or the recommendation, notice I use the word recommendation. They say, oh, look at that, the person said no here. They said no here, but in reality, did you get enough information to understand how you can help them do something better, or did you make assumptions? 90% of all sales are actually lost in the information stage. 90%. 90% of sales are lost here. 75% of the work that we do is prior to ever making the recommendation or the proposal. And yet what happens is, because we don't see it that way and we don't connect it that way, we think we lose the sale here. Because in order to make a sale, there are 4 components that need to be there. We need to be talking to the right person about the right product, about the right pricing, and about a realistic timetable. There are 4 elements, and if those elements aren't there, you don't make a sale. You've got to be talking to the right person. That's the first question that we usually ask. And the manager doesn't ask you that, and it doesn't help you qualify what the right person isn't helping you. So the first question is, are we talking to the right person? And how did you establish that's the right person? I'll show you how. When you ask how and why the decision was made, the who will emerge. Listen to it again. When you ask how and why the decision was made, the who will emerge. But we go in and we say, are you the right person? And inevitably the person says, yes, of course I'm the right person. Even though they do nothing all day. But they sound like the right person, they look like the right person, but they're the wrong person. Because you haven't asked that key question. How did you make that decision before? Because after all, they have a product like yours before. There isn't anybody here who is not selling a commodity. We all sell commodities. Whether we like that word or not, we all sell a commodity, which means we're selling something that everybody has. Nobody's selling such a product that's so new that no one's ever heard about it. So therefore, we go in and we say, do you have it? Now, let me show you something. Here's a different way of approaching sales. What's the one thing you know when you meet somebody for the first time? The one thing that you can guarantee me that you know about the person you're meeting for the very first time. It's they're not your customer. That's what you know. They're not your customer. But you don't use that information. You don't ever use it. You don't ever tie it in. You know they're not buying from you. You know that they're not your customer. They're not buying from you. They're buying from somebody else. But we don't use that information. I'm going to give you a different approach. I'll show you something. Suppose you walked in. Where are you from? Just out of curiosity, where are you from? Right? Yeah. Yeah. What? Yeah, where are you from? Stockholm. Oh, you're from Stockholm. Oh, I didn't know. I just was curious if you were from someplace else. From Stockholm? Why? Because you live here. Oh, that's good. That's a good reason. No, that's good. But I'll show you. There's more to it than that. Why do you live in Stockholm? There's a story behind it. Listen, we communicate in stories. Each one of you has a job or doesn't have a job. That's kind of a fact. You're either working or you're not working. But there's a story about how you got your job. There's a story about what you're doing. There's a story about why you dress the way you dress today. There's a story about why you came today. There's a story behind everything we do. There's a story behind it. So if we simply ask the question about what the story is, we get an elaboration. Watch. If you were going into someone's office, and I want you to picture this. Picture walking into someone's office in Stockholm, as incredible as this could be, and in the office is a large brown cow. Moo. A cow. There's a cow sitting in the office, as big as this sign. Here's a cow. Well, would you say something? Besides you want a date, would you actually say something? Of course you would. You would say to that person, how come you've got a cow there? You'd ask that question. You have to ask the question. It's so obvious you have to ask the question. Yet, when you go in to see somebody for the very first time, you know they're not buying from you, they're buying from someone else. And yet you don't ask the most obvious question, which is, Mr. Jones, Mr. Prospect, I know you're not buying from us. I'm just curious, why not? If you just simply said that, you would get a different answer than you're getting now. I'm just curious why you're not with us. I'm just curious why you're not using our company. I'm just curious, has anybody ever visited you before? I'm just curious why you're not our customer.